Welcome back. This is Mr. James, week 8, day 2. We're going to finish reading U.S. Government at Work today. You should have read pages 1 through 8 already, and today we're going to read the rest of the text. You might want to pre-read the activity or the questions because there's a quiz at the end today, so you might want to look at those questions or maybe be doing them as you read through the text or listen to it being read. Please make sure you are following along either on the screen or in your own text.
The growing needs of a growing country. As the nation grew, so did the size of presidential cabinets. The original departments and offices changed and expanded. More and more experts were appointed to help presidents run the country. Each department has specific responsibilities. The Department of State. The Department of Foreign Affairs became the Department of State. Its main job is to create and maintain good relationships with other countries. Ambassadors and diplomats work within those countries as representatives of the United States. The State Department's main offices are in Washington, D.C. It also has over 300 embassies in more than 190 countries worldwide. The Department of Defense. In 1947, Congress voted to unify the U.S. Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force into a single department. This became the Department of Defense. This department is headquartered at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The President is the Commander-in-Chief, but the Defense Department manages the military forces that protect the nation. It is by far the largest of the cabinet departments, with over 1.3 million service personnel and 742,000 civilian employees. The Department of the Treasury. The Department of the Treasury regulates the country's banks. It also collects taxes, prints paper money, and mints coins. Most of the original duties assigned to the Treasury Department in 1789 are still carried out by the department. There have been some changes, however. Matters that have to do with business are now handled by the Department of Commerce. The Department of Justice. The Office of the Attorney General was expanded to a full department in 1870. All legal matters having to do with the executive branch of the federal government are handled by the Justice Department. The Justice Department makes sure federal laws are obeyed. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and U.S. Attorneys are all part of the Justice Department. This department also manages the country's federal prisons. Like other cabinet departments, the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch. It is not part of the judicial branch. The Justice Department works like a local police force. It applies the law. The courts, however, are part of the judiciary. At the federal level, the court's job is to make sure the laws being applied are just. All laws must follow the Constitution. Do you know? Long before there was Google Maps, there was the Department of the Interior. Since 1849, the department's U.S. Geological Survey Agency has mapped features of the country's lands.
Mine's downstairs. I'm gonna put that pink. You're gonna go all the way upstairs and get that one? Just put that one on.
The Department of the Interior. The Department of the Interior was established in 1849. It's often called the nation's housekeeper. Its main duty is to look after the country's natural resources. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service are part of the Department of the Interior. The Coast Guard is a branch of the United States Armed Forces that enforces the law on the ocean and seas. It has control over both U.S. and international waters. The Coast Guard was originally managed by the Department of the Treasury. In 1967, it became part of the Department of Transportation and is now under the control of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security was established in 2002. Its mission is to safeguard citizens within the United States borders. It is the third largest cabinet department, with almost 250,000 workers. The U.S. Coast Guard and the Secret Service are part of this department. These agencies and others work to protect residents of the United States from all kinds of disasters and harm. As of 2018, 10 other cabinet departments are also involved in running the government. These include the Department of Energy, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Labor. The secretaries of all departments regularly meet with the president. They share information about what is happening in their department and discuss what actions to take.
Conclusion. From the original 4 departments, the cabinet has grown. Today, it has over 4 million workers. The growth of presidential cabinets has helped the United States function as times and the country's needs have changed. What hasn't changed is the importance of the cabinet's role. The experts working in all departments continue to achieve great good, serving the president and the country's citizens.
You can see down below the presidential succession. That means like the who has responsibility? The president first, then the vice president, then the Speaker of the House, then the president's pro tempore of the Senate. So the president's cabinet does not just help the president run the country, it also sets the order of who takes office if something should happen to the president. And on the next page, I believe, is simply just the glossary.
Connections.
And we're going to stop there. So, for today, as I alluded to earlier, you're going to have, it says we're going to read the pages, which we did. And then there's the U.S. government web. So for each section, now what I mean by section is where there's a different heading on the section. You're going to not only write the name of the section, but the main idea of that section. So those go around the outside. So those headings, each of those headings, you're going to write the main idea of it, meaning like a one-sentence summary, kind of what should the reader have learned in this section? Just a short sentence. And then overall, what should the reader have learned in a short sentence about the book? Okay. After that, we've got some vocabulary words. And once again, there's vocabulary cards. So the words are unify, regulate, agencies, and function. And then you've got a 6-question quiz. And you can notice here these lines. This is where you write the answer to that last 6 question, which is an extended response. Okay. Then for your writing today, as I said, we're going to do a writing project. So it's a personal narrative. So you wrote an outline yesterday. Today, you're going to take that outline and you're going to compose a rough draft. Now, what I've provided for you today is an example of the same story from the day before. But in this case, it showed you where to put some of those things that you had on your outline. So you can see the details went into 3 paragraphs here. And then the introduction is the setting from the top of your outline. And then there's a conclusion, or what happens at the end of your story. Now notice that the words I and my and me are used throughout the story. That's because this is a first-person personal narrative. And then there are lines for you to construct your rough draft. So your outline is what you should be using to write your rough draft today. It should be pretty simple to take some of those items that you wrote in the rough draft, turn those into sentences, and use that format of the outline to create 5 paragraphs for your personal narrative. As always, if you have questions or need help, please reach out. We are always happy to help. Thanks so much. Hope you're having a great day.